leaves of which were to the sloth's taste. There was little chance that it would stray, because sloths on the ground are virtually helpless. Its legs are little more than hangers, and only have slim ribbon-like muscles that are just about strong enough to enable it to transfer its grip from one branch to another, but quite incapable of supporting it standing upright. So, on the ground, the sloth lies on its stomach and waves its legs around with a sort of vague swimming motion, and just about succeeds in crawling very slowly forward, which it clearly doesn't like, because, quite apart from the awkwardness of it all, it's very vulnerable to attack from ground predators such as jaguar. The following morning I went out to look for it as it hung from its branch, and saw, to my delight, a tiny, bedraggled baby sloth crawling very slowly from between its mother's hind legs and out onto her belly. One of the Akawaya women in the village told me a story about baby sloths. A pair of them, twins I suppose, were sitting on their mother's stomach, complaining that they were very hungry. Their mother craned her head forward and said, "Clamber onto that branch, children, and I'll go off and find some leaves for you. But you must promise that you won't stray from this spot, so that I'll be able to find you again." The babies promised, and away she went. A day passed, and then another. The babies got more and more hungry, until eventually, on the 5th day, one of the babies whispered to the other, "Why don't we go and look for some leaves ourselves?" Whereupon their mother's voice came from the leaves nearby. "I warned you," she said. "If you don't stay where you are, I won't go." In reality, though, there's not much whispering that goes on among sloths. They're only capable of a faint bronchial wheeze and an occasional whistle. These sounds are probably only made to deter a predator, and certainly not to communicate with one another, for sloths are virtually stone deaf. It's said that an enthusiastic zoologist investigating the hearing ability of sloths discharged his gun close to one. It slowly raised its head, blinked at the scientist, and then went back to sleep. Their eyesight is not much good either. In fact, the only sense that seems at all acute is their sense of smell, and it's that they use to select their favourite leaves and fruit. So how do these purblind, half-deaf creatures find one another up in the branches when breeding time comes round? Well, it seems to be connected to their rate of digestion. That, like everything else, is extraordinarily slow. You might imagine that they would defecate with careless abandon, as they just hang there 50 feet up in the forest and allow their dung to fall to the ground. But not a bit of it. When the time approaches, a sloth sets off on what may be quite a long journey to a special tree in its territory. It slowly clambers downwards until it reaches the ground, where at the bottom of this tree there is a big pile of sloth dung, to which all the sloths in the area have contributed. Sloths have a communal loo. And there it hangs within a foot or so of the ground beside the great smelly pyramid, while it adds its own contribution. Perhaps the midden is the one and only conspicuous beacon in the sloth's dim and silent world, the only place where there's a reasonable chance of getting close to another sloth, and to know that you're doing so. If that's the case, then one would expect that sloth dung would be very pungent, and I can tell you it certainly is, even to the nostrils of a human being. But what extraordinary quirk of evolution led sloths down into their dim and silent alley? Well, raw leaves, no matter what salad enthusiasts may tell you, are remarkably indigestible. Cows, deer, and antelope deal with that, as everyone knows, by giving a mouthful a good chew, sending it down to the stomach, letting it stew there for a bit, and then bringing it back up again as cud, and chewing it a second time. And even after all that, the bulk of the meal, the cellulose, is so resistant to the digestive juices that it has no nutritive value and has to be ejected. But out on the plain,